This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, straight out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, but rocking a beautiful celebrating Toronto background because I consider that my true home. Lived in New Brunswick my whole life, and right now I am ready to jump ship anytime. But nonetheless, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to celebrate a couple of musicians sent to me by Mike Gormley, who I've been friends with since 2016. So he sent a lot of guests my way, and the two that he sent to me today, couple of interesting chaps, I gotta say. Back in 2016, I had Mr. Vados Hernandez himself from Oingo Boingo on the show. So I got my second from that band, plus he's done other stuff. Steve and Bartek. How do you do, Steve?
Hi, nice to be here. Nice to be here. It's
There
hard.
you
It's hard,
go.
it's hard to follow in Johnny Vatos's footsteps because he's quite the personality that I'm not. So
Why don't you have a blue mohawk like him?
it doesn't stay. It doesn't go with the gray as well.
No, no. And joining him, we have the awesome Ira Ingber. How do you do, Ira?
I'm doing well. Good to see you, Greg.
Yes, and of course you're both on here promoting. I didn't get the joke here until I was reading Mike Gormley's biography on you guys, and then I got it. Your band is called Bearing All.
Right.
And I'm like, what a strange name. And then I got it. It's based on the first three letters of Bartek and
The first three of mine as well. Yeah.
yeah,
No,
there you go. First
But
three letters in your name. Yeah.
try doing a search with bearing all, and you'll get all kinds of stuff.
when we our the person who's helping us out with our media stuff, she registered the domain. She was trying to register the domain of Bearing All, and she said, "Well, I've got bad news. The first thing that comes up is a nudist camp. Was it a nudist camp? Something nudist, something, right, Steve? It was something like that.
Yeah.
And then there was another thing that was not particularly appealing for us, but you got Bearing All Band is I think is our domain, but the idea of it being, the double entendre, of course, but also the fact that it is, in the truest sense, it's a duo. It's us representing what we each want to bring to the table. So it's not it's not a band in the conventional sense in that we don't play out live, which maybe we can talk about later, because our concept, which really was very simple, we wanted to do music. Oh, and who is that?
This is my bandmate. This is Skittles.
Skittles, whose head disappears when you change your skyline.
Yeah, Skittles is
I like
he
it. The mouth appears and disappears.
Yeah.
Skittles is involved in a band that is completely they don't play anywhere.
Yeah.
And they're except where they just happen to plop and lie.
That's a good band. Yeah.
Yes.
We have Orpheus here who does a similar thing. So
Yeah. Skittles is up all night and up all day studying for his exam. He wants to get his PhD in laziness.
yep.
Yeah.
Well on his way.
He's my buddy. He's my buddy. Now, I come to know Mike Gormley because I'm good friends with somebody he used to represent, an actress named Lisa Langlois from the movie Class of 1984. I had her on in 2015 and then again in 2017. And she's the reason I love Toronto because she had just moved from Los Angeles back to Toronto in 2016 or 17, somewhere in there. And we got talking about travel, and she asked what was stopping me because I'd never been outside New Brunswick really, and I'm going to be 52 this year. So
Time to move.
yeah, so she invited me to assist her at a horror film convention in Toronto, and I could not say no to that.
Yeah.
And it was my first time on a plane, which I really dug. It's like taking a bus in the sky. And so my first time on a plane, my first time on a subway. We don't have them here. I hadn't seen escalators since the 80s because we don't have them here anymore. And I met Lisa, and she showed me how to use the subways and stuff like that. And she's become a wonderful friend. Well, Mike was the one that set me up with my first interview with her. So anyway, she and I are still in touch. I just did my first convention in the States with her, New Jersey Chiller. She helped me get a passport 2 years ago when I was in Toronto. She showed me how to do that, and it's like nice, you know. So I hope to do a little bit of traveling, but mostly I work as a cleaner for money. So I usually do overnights, and between that and sleep and occasion.
You launder money? What is it? You clean money?
Well, I have to work because Skittles will not get a job. He refuses.
Yeah, we got to talk about that. Yeah.
Well, Skittles says he's related to the King of Beast. And when I was in Toronto last, I was to the Toronto Zoo and I saw the lions, and I was like, they were all laying down. And I was like, yes, Skittles is related. I can tell. I could see the resemblance.
You know the story of the difference between dogs and cats? Dogs look at their owners and say, they feed us, they love us, they take care of us. They must be gods. And the cats look at their owners and say, they feed us, they love us, they take care of us. We must be gods. Simple distinction.
Yeah. But nonetheless, that's how I come to I've never met Mike Gormley in person, but
Oh,
but
you're
ever
13.
s- but ever since, my interview with Lisa, and he's been steadily sending guests my way, and every once in a while I'll hear from him, and he'll have a guest idea for me, and I'm like, my door is always open for it. So
Yeah.
so you two
We
are the
like,
latest, and I was like, awesome. And I was like, I had Vedos Hernandez on from Oingo Boingo, so you're going to be my second Steve from that band. And it's funny because Mike didn't know I even knew who Oingo Boingo was. And I said, oh, yeah, I'm a big fan of that movie Back to School with
I
Rodney Dangerfield.
that was my starring role. That got me into SAG.
Yeah,
It was me and Robert Downey Jr. Robert
yeah.
Downey Jr. turned the feedback up, and I gave him a dirty look, and I got SAG for that.
There you go. Yeah, I've got Back to School here on Blu-ray actually. I've interviewed a few people from that. Adrian Barbeau has been on here, and I had Sam Kinnison's brother on here in tribute to him. I really like Back to School, and I've always loved Rodney Dangerfield. We're gonna get to Bearing All here for a sec, but I'd love to have you guys bear all with Rodney here for a minute, and ask if you have any Rodney Dangerfield stories.
Well,
Uh, I
so
wish I did. On the day that we did that shoot, it was a full day. Much
Uh-huh.
like today, I was sick, so I didn't hang out. Everybody else hung out with him, and they say he was a joy to be around, very funny, and there's a band picture with everyone but me. So I really the actual scene we were in, I don't think he was even in it. It was a dance scene, There's some hot tub scene that everybody else stayed around to watch and enjoyed. I missed all that, so I can't. I have nothing for you.
And
I
all I have is my wife's a lousy cook. My house, we pray after we eat.
I love Rodney, and I love Back to School. That movie did very, very well. I think one of my favorite scenes in it is the idea of Sam Kinison playing a professor in it, And nobody, I don't know anybody that got this joke, but Sam Kinison's character is Professor Turgidson. I wonder if anybody got the Doctor Strangelove reference,
Buck
because Turgidson was the name of the George C. Scott character, and
That's
you
right,
got
Buck Turgidson, whose famous line, well, he had a lot of them. I mean, I live by that movie where
Mhm.
the phone rings when they're in the war room, and he says, "I told you never to call me here."
I love it. I love it. But I wanted to know how you guys come to meet Mike Gormley. How was that like? I'm going to assume with you, Steve, it was through the connection with Oingo Boingo and Johnny Hernandez and
Yeah, Mike showed up through. I mean, John probably went through all this. Through LAPD was put together by oh, what's his name?
Copeland.
The guy from the police's
Yeah,
brother.
Copeland. Miles.
Copeland, yeah, Miles Copeland. Miles Copeland put it together as his management company, and
Mhm.
so um, uh, Mike was our manager, and he got us into lots of movies, and he like securely pushed us in the beginning there, and so he was around all the time. And
Absolutely. What about you,
I
Ira?
met, I met Mike in the mid '90s, a little after Steve did, independent of each other. We didn't.
yeah,
Steve and I knew of each other. We can probably talk about that a little later too. But Mike had a label called Wildcat Records, um, and I was producing an act on the label, a guy named Catfish Hodge, and we became friendly, Mike and I. And as you well know about him, once you get friendly with him, you stay friendly. I mean, unless you really do something stupid, you can't fall out of friendship with him. He's hard not to like. And so over the years, we would periodically see each other. And then I think it was at one of your jams, Steve, that I saw him. And we
oh,
started talking again. Steve and his wife put on these wonderful parties that we hope we can do some more um, summer events in their backyard where a bunch of musicians gather and Steve puts all the charts together and we to have a theme for the day, like we'll do all Elvis one day or we'll do Queen or whatever it is. And Mike, as I recall, was at I started seeing him there again and we would talk. And we we just stayed in touch and I found myself referring him to other people, a couple acts I was producing for his consulting work when he migrated from management to consulting, which he does now. And so, and Steve and I, I think to bring it back to Bearing All, I mean, it's a very familial organization in that, especially with the people that we chose to have appear on our recordings, everybody knows everybody from other contexts, and Mike was one of them. He's just already 30 some odd years for me and 40 for Steve, I guess.
yeah. And
So,
I kind of met Ira through Miriam, who used to be in the Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo. She's became a documentary film composer, and she introduced me to Ira at some point way back, and then Ira showed up for two films that Danny composed on. One was
Hot to Trot.
Hot to Trot. That's the one I couldn't remember, and then uh,
Midnight Run.
Midnight Run. That's the one. And Ira saved us a lot of pain with the director on Midnight Run. Ira was playing the slide guitar, and if
Mhm.
you've ever seen the score, it's all the slide guitar is everything. Slide guitars everywhere. But the director wanted to specify like every other bar, every other note to change, and so Danny was getting really frustrated. I was getting really frustrated, and we left him with Ira.
I got thrown to the wolves. However, it worked out well. I mean, his Midnight Run is a major thing I did because it became a temp score. And if you call it temp music, but it's music that's used by editors to edit other movies. And it became this temp score that for probably 3, 4, 5 years, it was the temp score. And I got a bunch of calls to play in other movies. Can you played on Midnight Run? Yeah. Well, can you do what you did for them for us? And it was before the era when it was so easy to, steal the stuff. Midnight Run was entirely analog. So
Mhm.
what Steve just said, the director got very specific and I mean, it was very hard work. Bill Jackson was the engineer who did the Boingo records, and he was the engineer for the movie, and it was painstaking work in the analog world.
I remember Danny and I walking out because it was so painful.
I remember Danny threw his score up in the air.
Yeah. Well, and in the end, Danny got what he wants. It didn't matter what the director was doing. Danny edited it together how he wanted it, and the director forgot about what he just had spent so many hours doing with Ira.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't just me. It was Ralph Grierson was involved a lot, but as we were making this movie, I thought it was De Niro and Charles Grodin, and I thought, because all we see are the scenes we work on, we don't see the continuous movie, and it was car chases and explosions and fight scenes, and I thought this is where this is when De Niro was still a serious actor, and I thought, man, this is where this guy ended up. And we went to the premiere, and it still is. I mean, it's a wonderful movie, beautifully written. And I have to say, for Marty Brest, the director, really well directed. It holds up. I saw it about 5 years ago or something, just because it was on. And aside from the aging process, certainly of the humans involved, it's brilliant writing. Ultimately, that's what the movie's about.
Oh, he went to the opposite extreme whenever he did Gigli. I think he's still trying to live that down.
Marty Brest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess he that and Beverly Hills Cop were his,
He went from Beverly Hills Cop to Gigli. Like, I feel bad for him,
Yeah, I don't think he's worked since. I don't see his name much, but it was a great experience for me on a number of levels, but mostly it was Steve and I starting to work together. And the fact that we were in each other's company in a pressure cooker, but I got a sense certainly more about what he was about. When I got to the session, because I knew him as a guitar player, not as an orchestrator, I just assumed he was going to be playing. And I was, both looking forward to it and feeling somewhat ready to be intimidated by this guy. And as it turned out, his hands were full with, and again, this is pre-Sibelius software. So he's writing everything, a handwritten score, running around with writing notes out for everybody. So we cajoled him to playing on a couple of cues, Steve, but it did get us conversationally involved with each other, and we would bump into each other more over the succeeding years. And then when his jam started, it was more, hey, let's play together.
I was surprised I invited Ira to the first one was Elvis, and Ira just jumped in and did everything for this jam. And then around that same time, his band, the New Corvairs, lost their star harmonica player. This guy was like really special, and Ira asked me to fill his shoes. I'm not a harmonica player, but as a second guitar player, and that was the first time that we actually in a audience situation played together, and it was great, and that kind of, I think it bonded me to be
Well, it
part.
did, yeah, no, both of us, obviously. And it was very clear very early on for both of us that we communicate at a level that's unusual for musicians. Good musicians, out of necessity, listen intently to each other. But then with the two of us, there's some things that border on telepathy. And the fact that we will anticipate each other's moves and sometimes complete each other's musical statements, you know. So
That's
it
good
was clear.
chemistry, yeah.
Yeah, it was instant without any effort. And when the Corvairs ended, the new Corvairs ended, it was clear we wanted to keep playing together. And so this new band was formed called Jackie O, bringing in another Boingo, John Avila. So now I was starting to be outnumbered by the Boingos, and periodically other Boingo. Vatos has played with us, so it's 3 Boingos to 1. So I call myself Boingo adjacent because I've been around these guys for so many years. I know most of the band now, and on our new record, we got on the title of the song called Arthur Murray's Dancing Pants, Avila's playing bass, Sluggo's playing sax, and Brian Swartz, their newest. He's only 15 years there, Steve, is he? Something like
Yeah.
that. He's the new guy.
Or the Oingo Boingo former members.
Yeah, he's the new guy. So we've got a real Boingo fest going on that one song. Again, with what I said earlier, the casting of people who all know each other, who like making music together, who feel there's a connection, you know. And so they want to please us, and we want them to be happy.
I wanted to ask Steve, what is your favorite Oingo Boingo song? I know that's a hard question.
It's very hard because a lot of it is what's my favorite to play, what's my favorite to listen to.
Oh,
I mean,
go into all of that. What's your
yeah,
favorite to
one I do enjoy playing, but it's not because the guitar parts are great, is Out of Control. It just emotionally, when we recently, and when we used to do it, when we did it live, it hit a, you could tell it was being effective and sending a message to the audience. It was emotionally effective. So in that sense, I like that a lot. There are other songs like I just found a video of the song "Hey" from like the last album where I liked playing guitar on that. And it was, I sounded pretty good. Or Thought I Heard Somebody Cry. I'm the album of that. I'm kind of proud of my guitar part on that. But
yeah.
The as far as songs, I can't, because I enjoy playing them. So my perspective is skewed.
I got introduced to them through Back to School and Dead Man's Party and that was my introductory to Oingo Boingo. I love the name of the band, and I've listened to everything they've done. And I'd find it hard pressed to pick a favorite song too, but I had to ask that.
Thank you.
Yeah, but um, before we get to Bearing All, you guys were talking about Midnight Run. I gotta say, Steve, you've been involved in a few other movies that I really enjoyed as well. I am a huge fan. I saw this in the theater of Romy and Michele's high school reunion. I love
Oh,
that film.
oh, that's my score. Thank you.
I love that movie. I've got it here on Blu-ray. I love that movie. Especially some of the great number one, the look of the film, the colors just blast you, you know, and Mira Sorvino, Lisa Kudrow. Mira Sorvino I've always liked, and she's got a lot of great lines in this, like, "Hi, I'm Romy, and I'm an alcoholic." Hey, everybody, in case you want to know, I have a phone. You
Well,
know?
the
I love that movie, and I'm
the
glad you're proud of it as well.
the interesting thing about that is, as I came in, the writer of it, which is what you're extolling, all the writing, she took over and got rid of the director. The director was the main director for The Simpsons, and
Okay.
she didn't like his cut or whatever he was doing, and she kind of shut him out and took over and hired me for the score behind without him knowing. So I did the whole score. She was happy. We were all kind of done. And then I had to go do a presentation of my cues for the ex-director. I think it was Christmas Eve or it was New Year's Eve or something like that. That would have no effect on anything because it was all done. It was all out of his hands. But technically, he had to have a say as to what the score was, and it was really tense and awful for me emotionally to be in that position. But obviously she did the right thing because the movie came out great.
Yeah, I saw that in the theater. I love that movie. And it's interesting how it's caught on and it's got this cult following now. So yeah, I thought that was one of those nice surprises when I went and saw it. I didn't know what to expect, and I come away. Like I said, I got it here on Blu-ray. I love that movie,
Well,
you know.
I think also any like real drums or real bass that's on that is
Mhm.
John and John from Boingo. That's who I used. So, and
Yeah,
our friend Jimmy Wood played harmonica on something there. So
yeah. Now I'm going to try to forget. I mean, this is not your fault, but I was not a fan of the remake of Psycho because I love Alfred Hitchcock. He
well,
changed the way I look at film.
here's the thing about the remake of Psycho. Well, quick is that it was an exercise for Gus Van Sant, and they offered him to do stuff, and he offered that as one, and the studio picked that up, and
Mhm.
his exercise in doing it was frame by frame, the timing and the filming of it was exactly the same. It was just a different camera, different actors. So, but the timing. So when it came down to doing the music, it fit exactly. It's like there was one scene. There's one scene where Alfred Hitchcock took the music that was written and put it somewhere else, and
Okay.
the one thing Gus Van Sant let us do is to put the original music back into both those places. Um,
Hmm.
but otherwise, it was a scene by scene exercise in recreating that film. So it was kind of more of an exercise than an actual film.
Yeah, I liked it when Gus Van Sant did Good Will Hunting. I like that film, and To Die For.
I
But
just watched Truman Capote, the Truman Capote thing, and
yeah.
he did a really good job on that.
Oh yeah. I think Gus Van Sant's a talented director. It just I don't know. I saw see with Hitchcock, Psycho was the first midnight film I ever seen. Back in 1996, I attended a midnight screening of it. And it changed the way I look at movies. And so and I've had Hitchcock's granddaughter here on the show, and yeah, that which was a pretty amazing. And I had the woman that double Janet Leigh in the shower scene in that movie as well. So, but I'm a big Hitchcock fan. But
It's
another
kind of
film that you did that doesn't get talked about a lot, but I saw it down at the university at the film uh, club that they do down there is Novocaine with Steve Martin and Laura Dern. I like that.
oh yeah, that's another one that I actually was the composer. Great. That was an interesting one too, because the director was a drummer. So he
Okay.
had some musical know-how. And um, but he wasn't paying attention as I was writing stuff to the film. He was paying attention to color correction and all this other stuff. And in about 3 days, about a week before we were supposed to score, he shows up and he has all kinds of notes about my score. And so there's things that there was no time for me to do stuff. And in fact, he sat with me changing one note every other bar in a scene that you didn't matter because it was a noise scene. It was like where the music was just doing tension, but he was, because I could do it and he could do it, he sat there, had me moving one note at a time in this thing. So the music supervisor brought the producer in, and I sat and played the producer my entire demo score, and he said, keep the director out of the recording session and you record your score. And so when we went to record it, the director was there, but he was not allowed to say anything. So I finished the score in record time, and we were all happy.
Well, Steve Martin is also known now for playing the banjo. Did you ever play with him?
No, I didn't. I only met him in Toronto. They did the Toronto Film Festival, and I got to have dinner with he and his partner. I don't know if it was his wife or what, but we had a dinner, and it was in a place that was so, he has the same thing that Danny has, is that noise just like drives him crazy, and it was a noisy environment. So he was pretty quiet, but he was really gracious, and that's as far as I ever got with him.
Yeah, I enjoyed Novocaine. I don't have it on Blu-ray. I don't know if it's on Blu-ray, but something I'd like to get. I like that movie. Another film that you get your name on, and this was interesting because I was looking up your credits and I was like, you were involved with The Crew. Now I'm going to tell you a little backstory there. George Leto is gone, and I did a tribute to him. I had his daughter Andrea on here a couple times because she just did a documentary on George Leto, the producer, and that of course led to me getting Nancy Allen here on the show, which was a major catch for me to get her on here. And but nonetheless, she enjoyed doing my show so much that she came back on here to do back on my show to promote the documentary she did on George Leto, a fascinating producer that guy is. But The Crew was one of the films they're involved with, and you're involved in that one as well. Any stories there?
That was more like, I got the film, I had a deadline, and I had to do a score, and the score is all samples and whatever live guitar, or I played everything, that kind of thing. So it was really fun and a challenge in that way, but not as much fun as having to have a real ensemble of people playing together.
Yeah. Now, Ira, you did a lot of television. Not, I know you did Midnight Run, but you did a lot of television. Anything what do you have, like a favorite?
Getting to work with some of the well, some of them are now dead, of course. There was a fellow named Jimmy Haskell who I worked for, and I started doing sessions for him. And Jimmy, absolute musical giant, and he's probably best, unfortunately or fortunately, known for having done the horn arrangement for Steely Dan's My Old School. Very wonderful, great horn arrangement. And Jimmy took a liking to me. Jeff Berlin was the bass player always in those sessions, and I forgot who played drums. But there was a little core group of us that started doing a lot of his TV and film stuff. And one of my favorite things he ever did was we were doing a scoring session, and he was at the podium, and he looks out at us, a smaller group, maybe 10 or 15, and he looks around, he says, ignore what I was going to tell you. He just cracked everybody up. He was a very gracious guy. And I very much, I so appreciated his generosity to the musicians. My friend Van Dyke Parks is the same way on the sessions, the live dates I've done with him. The musicians want to please the composer / conductor, who's ever leading us. And everybody just really unifies. The same thing happened when I was quite young. I worked for Don Costa, who was at that point Sinatra's arranger, sort of producer as well. And I got to record with Sinatra. I was 24 years old, and absolutely petrified because I was playing next to this fellow named Dennis Bodemir, who was one of the great studio guys. But for whatever reason, you know, I was good, I guess, good enough to do it. And Costa was, again, the same kind of a thing, very gracious, very encouraging, you know.
Mhm.
And it left a big impact on me now that I'm working with, I don't even like using the word mentor, but I guess it really is that, younger musicians who need the same treatment. You know, there were times when I was quite young playing sessions where the older guys, they wanted no part of me, you know, or Steve had the same experience where, you know, we're the threat. We're threatening those guys because what we represented was diametrically opposed to what they were about. And so they could be rude, you know, and very intimidating. But I made a point of remembering how it felt to be a young person coming up, needing every bit of help I could get, and getting it from those people who I just mentioned, among others. And so it serves, I think it serves just to keep that horrible cliche of paying it forward, but really it is that. It is continuing to encourage people. And the result is you get great work out of people. And again, bringing it back to Burying All, we brought in, I didn't know him, Steve knew him, a young cellist who played beautifully for us. Paul Cartwright is another one, a violinist on our recordings, and I'm working with Paul on a project as we speak. Paul is now 42 years old. It's hard to believe. We knew him since he was a teenager, I think. But the same thing is that these, I don't even look at them as younger musicians. I look at them as peers when we're together because we're all in it together. But Steve and I, as an example, we've had, you know, these years of experience to know what it's like when people make it rough on you. And I don't know if you can tell that story if you want, Steve, of Buell, but the fact is that to answer your question, Greg, the best I can, they're memorable when they went well or when they went horribly.
Mhm.
Every other one's in between. Well, it was a gig, we finished, it was great, and we're all happy about it. Just to finish the question, if I may, Steve got me on these sessions that I forgot why you couldn't finish Eureka. I think you were doing a Danny movie or something. And Steve got me to take his job away on this show called Eureka. And Bear McCreary was the composer, and that involved, again, a lot of these same people we keep running into. Paul Cartwright was on there. Ed Tribeck, who Steve uses as an orchestrator, was on that show, and Brendan McCreary, who currently is the lead singer for the Boingo, former members. So I have very fond memories of those shows, which were now, 15 years ago, 10 or 15. And then we went on to work, Steve and I went out to together, we got to play on the Battlestar. Steve started and I ended up with him. And we played, of all things, live. Because typically most recordings that have been done in the last so many 15 plus years are all done in segments. There's no big live scoring dates other than the orchestral dates that Steve does with Danny. But for ensemble TV work, it's largely sections, percussion, guitars, string sections, whatever it is. But the Battlestar thing, we actually all got to play large ensembles, like 15 people, 20, whatever it was, large group.
Yeah.
Playing live, playing this very inspired music. Bear was on fire for that show because he really created a genre of his own, you know, for that Battlestar thing, which drew people around the world to come and see us play. And so that would be, I guess, a TV show that really went beyond being the TV show, fond memory of, and it became this live thing that we all really loved doing. We only did a few of them, but they were very memorable in that all these people who'd never played together were playing together for the first time in one room.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Bearing All because Mike Gormley had sent me your website, and very, very colorful website. And I love the music video for Side Effects, that was that was creative, and I could definitely see what you guys were going for. Now, how complicated, now maybe it's just from my standpoint, it looks complicated, but maybe it was easy for you guys. But so I'm saying this from my standpoint, how complicated was it to do that music video?
Well, we didn't do it, fortunately.
Oh,
This fellow named, we call him Rohitash Rao is his name. He was a Boingo fan. And he contacted Steve. We were looking desperately to find, we decided that that song was one that would lend itself immediately to a video, just because the way it came down. I always had this notion, I suppose it's on Canadian television also, and radio. When you hear the disclaimers for medications, how insane those disclaimers are, the fact that they're oftentimes longer than the commercial, and the fact that no one really seemed to pay any attention, like, well, this medication can do it, and then possible death, and early insanity, and think, is anybody even hearing this? So it got me thinking about a way to address my question of the absurdity of it. And the video, fortunately, not fortunately, it exceeded anything Steve and I could have imagined, because Roe is a stop motion master. What we didn't know is how long it was going to take him. And he kept saying, oh, it's coming along great. It's coming along great. Well, when he gets 2 seconds or 3 seconds in one day, he pops champagne, so we were blown away when we saw it. It was and is a tour de force. This thing is just exceptional work, and we do want to have him do more for us. It's just that we have to set our calendars appropriately. It's like aiming, a gun for something that's 4 miles away. Well, you shoot out there and maybe it'll hit up.
The other kind of interesting thing about that song is that it was how early on our collaboration, where we sat down in my room here and I picked 2 notes, he picked 2 notes, and we put them together and just randomly played things and ended up with the music track that we have after Ira then edited it together, the whole process of going back and forth and getting the edit right. And then he inspiringly put his lyric idea on top of it. So which is kind of the process we've been going through, where we together we do something, and it's mostly either improv or based on an idea. We attack it, but together, as opposed to me handing it to him and him handing it to me, or someone, how most of those collaborations are happening in these days. In fact, one of the tunes we came in, I set up 6 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 6 toy pianos and a celeste. And we both went out and played, recording it all at the same time, so there was no editing.
In mono, by the way, so there's
in mono. Yes, we did it. Oh, it's in mono. I should forget. We did 2 tracks. That's why we had stereo. Yes, we did it.
But they were mono, so we made sure there was plenty of leakage, so anything that was a mistake on one would be heard on the other microphone.
Right. So that whatever we did was locked in. And we did that with the pianos, and we did it with a percussion track, and it became the basis of this other whole song. And so that was kind of our approach as we started doing this. It was for a live interaction, building off of a live interaction, emotional connection between us 2 musicians, as opposed to having an idea and someone laying down something on top of it, that kind of thing.
And the important seasoning with that, what Steve just said, is the imposition of limitation. So, for example, in the very first song we did, which was Turn on the Light, was the first song we finished, first song we started and finished. We approached it, we didn't know anything. I mean, everything was a blank slate for us. So we decided, let's play the hardest guitars we own to play.
Most difficult to Yeah.
most difficult to play. I mean,
Did you
physically.
guys turn on the light for it?
We did later on. We were in the dark at the beginning. I'm playing an electric 12 string, which is not a fun instrument to play in terms of the physicality of it. It's demanding physically. And Steve's playing his very first 3/4 size Gibson guitar. That's a beautiful.
It's on it's on the cover of
on the cover of our record.
we're both playing the same guitar.
Yeah. But not easy to play because it's a very cramped fingerboard. So just the knowledge, the working knowledge of, okay, this is our little sandbox we have to work with. Because I think because the notion of recording has changed so dramatically from when Steve and I started in, again, the analog world. In the digital domain of recording, limitations have been removed completely. There is nothing you cannot do. So if you start with that premise, it's both very liberating and completely paralyzing for people. The paralysis part comes from having to make decisions, which a lot of people who only have grown up in the digital world usually forestall. Well, we'll fix that guitar solo. We'll do 300 takes and we'll edit something together. That decision-making process for me, I can't relate to it because it's you have to make a decision. Why not make it, just do it now and get it over with? And if you listen to, you know, the great records of the eras, 60s, 70s, 80s, even 90s, those things were worked out. Now, that doesn't mean they weren't improvised, but the limitation of analog recording meant you had only so much stuff you could do. And certain things, once done, couldn't be undone. There was no Command Z in an analog recording. So the fact that we've approached our stuff now with limitation that we impose, for me, and I think Steve probably would agree, it's ultimately very liberating because at least we know our parameters. And so going down the list of the songs, well, what do we want to do with this? Well, in the case of Where Do We Belong, the song Where Do We Belong was one of the more recent ones we did. I just sort of thought, well, let's not use a bass. Every other song we have has a bass in it. Let's not use a bass. Well, what are we gonna do? And Steve thought, well, let's do cello. Great. Well, it's not in the same range as a bass, so it's not going to function the same way as a bass. It's not going to ground the recording the way a bass does. So other things are going to have to do it. Steve came up with a great drum loop that we cut and mangled and stretched and, you know, mutilated, and it functions as a percussion element. We brought in this wonderful cellist, Jacob Zakelli is his name, who understood what we were going for in terms of, you know, you're not playing conventional cello always through this thing. Steve wrote a fabulous arrangement that we both started and said, no, you do this. He does this in his sleep. But the idea that the limitation was imposed already on that song, there is no bass. So mixing it was really challenging because when you mix recordings, you're looking for the low to high frequency balance and trying to make some coherence out of this thing. Well, there was no low end appreciably. And so it created other problems that had to be solved. But the fact that we had to push against something is what I believe gave us a very successful end product.
Well, part of the whole album is we don't have a drum kit really playing with.
Yeah, we've used loops at times. We've created our own, we built our own loops. In Turn on the Light, we made drum loops of our own.
You gotta get Johnny Hernandez in there.
Well, he's chomping at the bit. We've got everybody else going, but John, we'll find a place for Vatos as we proceed forward. But I think that if there's any one descriptive of what Bearing All is that we are certainly not on the beaten, we are off the beaten path out of necessity. We've heard enough conventionality in, we're doing pop music. It's pop because we're making it pop. It's got songs with choruses and harmonies, so that makes it pop in my book. And electric guitars, but the unconventionality of it is really what appeals to both Steve and I. The fact that we're not wanting it to be a retread of things that he and I've been hearing for the past decades. It's been done, and it's been done beautifully. No one's going to beat. I've had the fortune of working with Captain Beefheart as a young guy. No one's going to ever beat that. Just go around it, but let it inform your music. Let it inform your thinking. And I was, again, very lucky to have been around it. But I think that being a slave to that form that has been with us, let's call it, Beatle explosion on, early 60s onward, where pop music specifically, has been more or less very conformist, with notable people who are outliers. The people that I like to listen to, people Steve likes to listen to. We want to make music we like to listen to.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say, I was listening to tracks off this that like Mike Gormley sent me the web page, and Arthur Murray's Dancing Pants. I love the horn arrangement featured in that, because it reminded me a lot of Oingo Boingo.
Well, there's a good reason for it. That
Mhm.
guy told the people. Well, it's interesting if we could talk about that one for just a quick second. So we found ourselves with this track. It was supposed to be a track I started for Jackie O, our band, and we just forgot about it. I forgot about it, and we needed a track of music, and I said, listen to this, and it was actually quite good. It came from 2016, I think. And we thought, well, we've had enough lyrics. Let's do something different. Let's do an instrumental, because there, up to that point, there was only one instrumental on the album. And so the idea of horns kind of came to both of us. And Steve said, well, why don't you sing some horn parts? And so I just ad-libbed some ba-da, ba-da-da, ba-da, da-da-da. And I was thinking, well, it's kind of like Average White Band, except they were a little too tame. Let's do something that takes us with that general area of horn thinking. They did some great stuff, Average White Band, but I felt that they were tame. They were conventional. And so let's start with that as a place to kick things. And Steve, of course, was like red to a bull, and he said, we set him off running. What Steve didn't know at the time, that Sam Sluggo, founding member of the band with them, or early on, most of it we were hoping would lie on the tenor saxophone. As it turned out, it didn't. It was on the alto. Steve should have known that.
It was my fault. I knew he played alto, but I should have known he hasn't really played it for a long
He's
time.
a better tenor player than an alto player, but he's a fabulous musician and great tone. And he and Brian have been playing a lot together with their former members. And so they played beautifully, and it was very challenging parts. But as soon as we heard it, as soon as we finished pretty much getting it presentable as a mix for referencing, we knew this thing was a hit for us. I mean, a hit in our world, that it satisfied everything we wanted it to be, to the point where when we were thinking about making a vinyl release, which was a journey we kind of started and then gave up on, it was going to be the leading track. And it's the leading track now of the sequence for the downloadable record. Because everybody we played it to, it doesn't matter. It's just infectious. It puts a smile on everybody's face, because there is a familiarity to it. That's the Boingo / Average White Band / a little insane, stuff in there. Avila gets a star turn. Every time I hear a couple of his parts, I crack up every time I hear it. And I've heard it hundreds of times, because there's so much personality in it, and there's so much humanity in it. They're all played. There's not I will, full disclosure, I programmed the drums on that one. However, our drummer in Jackie O, David Raven, who's an extraordinary drummer, and he normally gives me shit about my drum programming because he's a drummer, and he's rightfully antagonized by it. But he wanted to know who was playing drums on it, and I said, "Oh, compliments, huh?" So I said, "No, I did that." He begrudgingly said, "Oh, those sound really good. Those sound really good." I didn't do it for the compliment. I did it because the track was already put together. There was nothing else to do. But getting the humans involved, John on the bass, Brian and Sam, and Steve and I playing our guitar, they're real guitars on there. It changes everything. And a lot of modern music, sadly, strike modern, a lot of music that's made today is so reliant, and let's not start about AI. It's so reliant on the non-human participation because they sound good and they're malleable. The samples are easy to move around and you can transpose them and all this great stuff. But ultimately, it's lacking the thing that Steve likes to talk about, and that is, well, they're not playing in the same room as us.
Yeah.
Those guys are playing in the same room because they were playing in the same room.
Yeah.
So do you now you've got this album done, are you guys going to be like I don't know if you guys got a tour set or anything like that. Where are you going to go with this?
We're going to talk to you about it. We'll go to New Brunswick and set up
Have
an
you guys
acoustic.
ever been out here before? This is like
No, but
the
I have a friend, his name is Neil Seidel. I don't know if how big is a town is that? New Brunswick's not that big, right? 100,000 maybe? Not even.
I don't know, but it's like the unknown province in
Yeah.
Canada, you know, like we're an hour
Right.
ahead of East Coast, you
Well,
know.
you're a maritime province, right? Officially.
Yeah.
Uh, I'd love to go there. But to answer the question, and then Steve, you should give your version of it too. To play this stuff live is two things for me. And I'll try to choose my words as carefully as possible. Formidable, word number one. And number two, maybe not all that desirable for me. That's two words. Because the joy for me in this is the writing and recording and mixing of it. And the live presentation part would be so hard to pull off. We'd have to pull.
One of the points of us actually getting this out was that so we could wash our hands of it and do more.
Yeah.
Because we were feeling the weight of, well, we've got this, we got to do something with it, and thus we have not been together writing and recording again.
Yeah.
So now that it's out, we can move on.
Yep.
And moving on may possibly include playing stuff we could play live.
Right. But part of what I think we should do, because we're both guitar players, is do stuff that's more out front guitar playing. So possibly that might be what we do.
There you go. There you go. Well, I love what I'm hearing on this album, you know, and I think it's got a lot of creativity in it, and I love seeing creative minds come together and create awesome music, you know. I was never a musical person growing up. I've had people in my family that um are musical, and I couldn't play an instrument to save my life, but
Audiences are a very essential part of this whole game here. So be a good audience. That's an important job.
there you
Truly,
go. There you
truly.
go.
I mean, it's not. I'm not just making a funny statement. I think that, and Steve and I know this from playing live. When musicians are together and you're in a synergy with the audience, it's a magic you can never duplicate. And it's the audience that is the component that fuels it, and it goes back and forth. And I've seen it all my life of being a performer. And I've seen it with people who have had the same thing. Reading the audience, knowing what works, uh, knowing that every time you do this certain thing, you get this response back, and then you give it back, and it comes back, and it creates this big mushroom of real a tangible energy that you can feel. It's the thing that it's seductive to musicians because you want that fix. I'm sure Keith Richards probably still feels it when he goes on stage. It's time to go on.
Do you think he still feels anything?
No, I do. I think he's in. I think
I'm making a joke there.
that's a joke, son. I think all of those guys who have been doing it forever, you probably saw my resume. I've worked with Bob Dylan, Steve
Yes,
Albini,
I did.
and Bob continues to tour because that thing I'm talking about happens to him. Neil Young, McCartney, all those people who don't need to do it for money need to do it for the other reasons. I mean, Danny's got a case of it going now. Danny
Yeah.
wants to play live. He's feeling the buzz. He's feeling
Yeah.
that draw that you cannot get when you operate in a vacuum. And so for
Yeah.
our record is kind of a middle ground for that, in that we want to get, like, talking to people like you, people hearing it, responding, discussing it. It's not the same buzz, but it's a buzz of people recognizing. It's not even the praise. It's the fact that we're connecting. And people say, well, I don't like that song. Great. You didn't like it. You didn't get
But
it.
you listen to it.
You listen to it.
I
Exactly.
did. I
You- you-
did. Yep.
I like to do what I call unapologetic music. This is the best we can make it. It's not like we didn't have enough time. We didn't have enough resources. We didn't have enough talent. Whatever it was, it's all optimized. And if the listener on the other end somehow says, well, didn't get that, we can't say, well, if I had more time, it would have been better. No, you didn't get it. It wasn't because we didn't try. But for the people who did get it, it's very rewarding. It's not that we did our job right or wrong. It's that thing I've been saying. The connection is happening. And so far, the people who've heard it just came out. It's been really wonderful, gratifying, and Arthur Murray is often singled out. Like, wow, I love this thing. It's so cool. It's because it's important for me to bring some joy into the world. It's simple as that. I don't want to live in a joyless place.
No.
And even the songs that are somber, of which we have a few of them, there's still a joy component to it.
It's funny, when I was watching the video for special effects, it kind of took me back into a nostalgia place. It made me think of Thomas Dolby.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's very high. I mean, Thomas Dolby to me was such an inspiration because he was another one of those people who was uncompromising.
Mm-hmm.
He happened to do it with, an early embrace of, as early embrace of technology, and he humanized it. He humanized, I mean, Blinded by Science is as ridiculously machine-like as it was very human.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of his song, that I'm glad you brought him up because he was a very big touchstone for me back in the day.
I remember the video for Hyperactive growing up.
Amazing. And I think to this day, The Flat Earth is one of my favorite albums. It's just gorgeous. It's luminous. It's Technicolor. It's just this expansive palette that he created. And that's rare, that's a rare thing. And to have it be so informative, that's what we want to be doing, in our work, that, somebody hears and say, wow, this just got me to thinking, like Side Effects got you to thinking Dolby. Great. That's my job's done today. I can go home. I am home.
Talk about working with Bob Dylan.
Well, he's a contradiction. He's many things. He is the most in the moment person you will ever meet in your life. There's no yesterday, there's no tomorrow. There's only right now. And I had worked with him first in the early 80s, mid 80s, and then there was a big gap of time. And just before the pandemic, he contacted me about something else. And we started talking. And the first time we were on the phone, I think it was 2019 or 20, we started talking as if no time had passed. It was like, it was a continuation of a conversation that took place, 40, 35 years ago. And things kind of led to another. Nothing's linear with Bob. So that's not like, well, I'll see you on Tuesday and we're going to do this. And so he sent me a piece of music to work on. He wanted me to work on this thing. And of course, I'm not going to say no to Bob. And I started working on this thing and didn't hear from him for about a month. And then I got a call. Bob wants from the office. Bob wants to know if you can come in tomorrow. And I thought I was going to come in to work on that song that he sent to me that I did some stuff to. And I got to his place where we were recording, and there's all these people there: T-Bone Burnett and Don Was and Greg Lease and all these people, wonderful musicians. I had no idea what it was. And then Bob walked in, and I hadn't seen him. We'd only spoken on the phone. I said, "Hey, how's it going?" And as it turned out, I had known him the longest of everybody there except for T-Bone. But we started, he said, well, let's run over this song. And okay, well, I'm still not figuring out what it is I'm doing. And he starts playing some songs. And it was it turned out to be what ended up being Shadow Kingdom, which was an album that came out last year. It was recorded in 21. And it was a reinterpretation of what I believe his greatest music was. And I got to be part of that. And on one session, the other guitar player, Greg Lease, couldn't make it. So I called this guy up, and Steve got to play on a Bob date, which was great. And Avila, I got a call one day from Bob, and he says, yeah, listen, I don't like the way the bass sounds. Do you like the way the bass sounds? And what am I going to say? I said, well, Bob, Don's, maybe Don was playing upright bass. And I said, well, maybe if he played electric. He said, no, I don't think it's right. Why don't you bring someone in you like? And so I called Avila, and John said, oh, I don't think I can do it. No, he didn't say that. So John shows up, and no, I'm out of sequence. The accordion player who T-Bone brought in had to leave. And so I brought, and Bob asked me, because in the 80s, I put a band together for Bob. So he kind of knew I had musicians I could call upon that were the right call for him. So I brought in Doug Lacey, who's another Boingo adjacent human being, pals of Steve's and mine. And it was Bob fell in love immediately. He just thought Doug was, and Doug really exceeded all expectations. He was amazing on this record. The other guy was really good. Doug was exceptional. And then the bass thing happened. So I got two buds playing with me, with Bob, John and Doug. And then that one day that Greg Lease couldn't, Steve is there. So I got three buds now playing with Bob. And it was very, very comfortable, but difficult, because what we were trying to do was reimagine in my opinion, some of the greatest music ever written, with the guy who's now in his 80s recording songs he wrote in his 20s. So there's a real poignancy to it. But we pulled it off, and none of it would have happened had there not been COVID, because he would have just been touring continuously.
The one thing I noticed from the sessions from Bob was that he treated all the musicians as equals.
Right.
Even though we were all in awe of him and doing it, he didn't act like he was dictating what was going to go on. He got us to do stuff for him.
It was very ensemble
with him more than for him. It was
very ensemble like, and
he was actually quite good at that, I thought.
Oh, he's exceptional. Yeah. I think Bob really likes the company of musicians more than anyone else, both because he's in awe of them and because he could also dominate them in his own way too. But it's a comfort zone. And at the end of certain sessions, if he was in a really good mood, as it turns out, I found he would just start telling these stories that were just, were you there for one of the stories, Steve?
No, it wasn't one of the days.
I mean, he would just, I mean, he would go on for like an hour talking about how I did my first album and his dinner with Groucho Marx and, you know, the life this guy has lived. I mean, need we say more? So, you know, it was very essential to answer your question the best I can, because you could go on for days, people have, about Bob. There's Bob Dylan and then there's Bob, the guy. And the only way you can successfully work with him is if you're relating to Bob. If you relate to Bob Dylan, you're screwed. And the guy I replaced, who was a magnificent guitar player named Tim Pierce, truly great. Tim has played on hundreds, thousands, I don't know. I know him a little bit, and he's great. And T-Bone had brought him in. Oh no, Don Was had brought Tim in, and he got fired. And I didn't know until afterwards, because Bob kept saying, you know, I couldn't wait to get rid of that guy. You know, when you came in, everything got good. And I said, well, Bob, you know who he is? He's, I don't care about him. And I said, well, he played with Springsteen. I don't care about that. What Tim did wrong was he was trying to play Bob's music literally. Learn the original recordings, play them as they were. And that's the worst thing you could do for Bob, because he's not about yesterday. He's about now. He's not about tomorrow. He's about now. And to the recordings, my sense of him is that his recordings are not important to him. His songs are. And so however they get interpreted and they move moment to moment, Steve saw it happen with that song that you were on. I mean, it's let's try a new key. Let's try a new tempo. Is it in 3/4? I mean, everything changes constantly, and you're just hanging on for dear life because, you know, there's no paper arrangement. It's all, where are we all going to bob and weave together in the course of 3 or 4 minutes, whatever the length was. That's how he works. And you have to be very, very in tune with yourself and with your fellow musicians at the same time. You have to know, in recording with him, I've never played live with him, but recording, you have to know kind of how much not to play, at the same time knowing how much to play. It's a very fine balance.
There you go. There you go. You guys like to plug the website so people can find out where they can go and engage in this awesome music.
Yes, well, Bearing All / band is the website, I believe, right, Steve? Is it Bearing All Band?
Yeah, Bearing All Band, I think it's.
Can you look for it? Because I can't quickly.
Yeah, people need to know that because we don't want to send them to some sites that they
Yeah,
shouldn't go.
and also Downtown Records, which is the label that we're on, courtesy of Mike, will have us on there. Downtown Records. Is it Bearing All Band, right? We should know this before we engage in interviews, Greg. I apologize.
That's okay. That's okay.
It was because of what we said earlier, we began that we wanted Bearing All, and we were going to get nudist camps, so that wasn't going to work too well.
Yeah. No, I want to be able to let audience know where they
What is
can
it,
be direct. Huh?
Bearing-all.com is what it is.
There you go.
Yeah, or Bearing All -band will get them too.
Yeah, bearing-all.com.
Bearing-all.
.com.
We'll get it. They'll find us that way.
-all.com.
Yeah, bearing-all.com. And then, as I said, the Downtown Records has a big website. You can do a search in there and you'll find it, and it's available in all the services. Services sounds like it's, you know, we're selling janitorial pieces or cleaning material.
Yeah, like you do in the evening.
Like you do in the evening.
Yeah.
So it's on
What I
Spotify.
do, yeah.
It's on Spotify. It's on Apple. It's on Amazon. It's on a few European sites, I believe, as well. But it's in, what downtown does is they're aggregators, so they spread it out. And we just launched last week today. Tomorrow will be a week. So we're just gearing up. Gabby Shanae, who's our, let's call her the web mistress and social media, is just getting the stuff out now. So look for it. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all the suspects will have promotional things. And, we're learning, I'm learning, Steve as well, the necessity to engage, via these things. So we're just starting that thing going right now. We probably should have started earlier, but technicalities ensued.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anything else you two want to plug and promote on here before we close off?
I think we did a wonderful, Steve. You want to promote? No, nothing. I mean, we speaking for Steve, that we appreciate what you're doing for us, and
Yeah, having us
getting
on
through it.
was
Yeah,
good.
thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Nope. Mike had reached out to me and he pitched you guys, and I said absolutely, absolutely. I don't turn people away. I consider it a blessing that I'm able to do this. I don't make money at this. This is just something I do because I'm surprised I am doing this. 10 years ago, I'd be like, I never thought I'd be doing this. Um, so I enjoy doing this and going down memory lane and hearing the stories. And so, yep, Mike usually once or twice a year he'll have somebody to pitch to me, and I've never turned him down. So
Well, it's the Canadian mafia at work.
there you go. There you go.
Forgot about that connection.
Yeah, the Canadian. Hey,
Yeah.
thank you for your time, Greg. It was really,
Thank
it
you.
was
Thank
fun
you.
doing it, and I hope we can do it again.
You know what? I'm more than open. Like I said, if you guys got more stuff to promote and whatnot, feel free to reach out. Like,
Well, we hope to. That's the idea, is make more stuff. Yeah.
yeah, well, I'm still in touch with a lot of musicians that Mike has sent my way, like TJ Doyle, I have on nearly every year,
That's
and
great.
yep, and he loves coming on, and Kimberly Haynes has been on here 2 or 3 times, and I gelled well with them, and I'm always open to have people back on the show. So
That's
you're
great.
always welcome. The door is open, and happy
Very,
to make that happen.
very
Yeah.
kind of you. Thank you.
Yes,
And bye,
absolutely.
bye for now. Be well and have a good time in Toronto.
I'm looking forward to getting there eventually. Right now I'm here.
Well,
I think,
But it looks marvelous behind you.
it looks absolutely explosive.
yeah, that's my celebrating Toronto in June here, even though I'm in New Brunswick. But look, New Brunswick is a fine province, but I find it very backwards.
When you were in Toronto, did you go up the tower with the glass bottom on the
No, I did not,
Oh.
but I got a really nice picture of, like, actually, I don't know where Lisa and I were coming from, but we were going down the street, and this was somewhere around Christmas time, because the convention ran later in the year that year, and the tower, the CN Tower, was lit up in green and red, and I got a nice picture of that. I've never been up in it. I don't
Right.
know. It's never been something that really hit me, but I love Toronto, and it's the first time I've ever been away from New Brunswick where I haven't felt homesick.
Yeah. The disturbing thing about the tower is it has an area that's glass that you're walking over, so you have this whole sense of you're floating or falling. So you would have remembered that. Yeah.
Well, I'm a big fan of going to towers in any city you can. Obviously Paris has one. Tokyo.
Speaking of towers, I left Toronto from the film festival the day before the Twin Towers fell in New York.
Wow.
Oh,
Another
I remember when that happened because
tower.
Just flew in time to miss it.
Wow.
We were
Tokyo
staying
Tower
at-
is another tower for
Yeah.
if you ever get to Tokyo, another great tower to go up. There's
Seattle.
there's one in Minneapolis that's nice. So anyway, I must leave. Thank you so much for your time, Greg. We
Yes, thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
well, I think I have one more question for you, Ira.
Ira.
Ira, sorry, I'm sorry.
Well, it does come up with an E on your name, so that's
Well, I
No.
wanted to know what's the secret to your hair?
Uh, headstands, shoulder stands, and thinking good thoughts.
That's it.
good answer.
What I just gave you, go with it.
Folks, we're bearing all tonight. Well, be thankful I'm not bearing all because there's a reason my cat runs out of the room whenever I'm getting ready for bed, just doesn't want to see that. But we are bearing all with this wonderful band here. We have Stephen Bartek, of course, from formerly of Oingo Boingo, and now he's bearing all, and we have Ira Ingber, yeah, also awesome musician. Worked with Bob Dylan and of course so many others. And of course, let's not forget those films like Back to School, Romy and Michelle's high school reunion. I like how you lit up when I mentioned that film. Love that film.
Nobody ever mentions it. It's nice.
Well, you just a minute here. I got here on Blu-ray. I'll show that thing right off here. I'll show that thing right off here.
Nice work.
Look at that. There you go.
Yes.
I like that poster too,
They were good in it. It was a good. I enjoyed it.
Well, nobody ever mentioned. I'm surprised nobody mentions this because it wasn't what you call a huge hit at the box office in '97. But boy, it's funny. Some of the films that end up catching on afterwards, like like in 1998, the biggest hit was Armageddon, which I wasn't a big fan of. But it's funny where The Big Lebowski and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas also come out that year.
Also,
They're like
Office. I
cult
think
films now.
I think Office Space was 98, wasn't it too?
Which one?
Office Space. Do you know that
Office
one?
Space was 99. It's funny
99.
you mentioned that because I've interviewed two people from that film and one is
Magnificent.
scheduled to come back on here.
Well, please give my regards to it's still one of my favorites. It holds up remarkably well too. You ever seen it, Steve? You seen Office Space?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Anyway, I must hit it. Wonderful to meet you, Greg. And if
Yeah,
you
great to meet you. Thanks.
if you come to LA, we'll see you in person.
Absolutely, absolutely. Eventually, hopefully, I'll be able to make that happen. I just made it to Jersey. It was my first U.S. Time in the U.S. So
Go west and you'll find it. Go west, you'll find it. I
Further
must
west.
leave. Take care, everybody.
Yeah.
take care. God bless. Keep making music.
It's a
Thank
deal.
you.
Take it easy. Bye bye.